If you don't know him by name, you surely know the candidates that former state Democratic Party Chair John Walsh helped propel into office. Walsh, who died last week at 65, is best known as a master of grassroots campaigning who took Deval Patrick from relative unknown to becoming Massachusetts' first black governor. From there, he'd go on to help elect many more prominent Massachusetts politicians, including now Attorney General Andrea Campbell, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and Senator Ed Markey. A flood of tributes have poured in over the past several days from former candidates, colleagues, and friends, with as much praise for John Walsh, the man, as for John Walsh, the political operative, including from my next guests, Sarah Groh, Chief of Staff for Congresswoman Pressley, and Alex Goldstein, who worked with John Walsh on both of Governor Patrick's campaigns. He's now founder and CEO of the communications firm 90 West. Thank you both for taking time to talk about John. Sarah, when he passed away, you sent out a tweet expressing your condolences to John's family and adding, "Thank you for all of your advice and support and that pep talk at McKenna's that gave me the confidence to step up as Ayanna Pressley's 2018 campaign manager." What, if anything, can you share about what John Walsh told you when he gave you that pep talk at McKenna's?
Well, thanks for having us, Adam. It's such an honor to be able to share some memories of John, and I will never forget that pep talk at McKenna's. I think what we heard at the Celebration of Life this week, too, is that so many folks have incredible stories like that. We were at an inflection point in the campaign. I was a first-time campaign manager, working for someone I admired and respected so much, and I felt tremendous pressure to get it right. I really believed in what the Congresswoman was campaigning for and what we saw as a possibility for representation in the 7th. And I was feeling the pressure. And so I came into breakfast with John with a laundry list of critical decisions we needed to make yesterday. With his signature, just like warmth and affability, he talked me through every strategy question. And then I remember he locked eyes and he said, "At the end of the day, Sarah, these are just decisions. You are smart and you are capable enough to make them." And then to add a little levity, he went on to say, plus it's Massachusetts. If you win, everyone will call you a political genius. And if you lose, they'll call you a dirty bum. I will never forget that conversation, and just so consistent with John being so generous of his time to so many up-and-coming political staffers and taking a chance on us.
You talk about him being generous with his time. He did that not in a capacity of working for the campaign, right? This was a friend-to-friend, colleague-to-colleague chat.
Truly an SOS call, right? That moment, yeah. As a campaign manager where you say, "Oh no, I'm in over my head. Who do I trust?" And he just really bolstered my confidence and made the stakes so plain. He believed so strongly in the Congresswoman's 2018 campaign. He believed so strongly in her. And that continued during her time in Congress as well, which was such a gift.
I should mention. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Just to your point, he's done that for so many folks. I mean, we heard so many stories about that, just those sit downs, those coffees, and how they were so critical. I mean, they've defined Massachusetts politics for good, in my view.
Some of our viewers will know this. I should highlight it, though, that he ended up endorsing Ayanna Pressley in that campaign when other members of the Massachusetts political establishment were kind of getting behind Mike Capuano, as a rule. Alex, John Walsh, I know, was present at the creation of your creation as a political operative. Can you just recap a little bit the role he played for you as you were getting started in the business you're in?
Yeah, so John was my first boss in politics, gave me my first job as a grassroots field organizer on Deval Patrick's improbable 06 campaign, and then also went on to give me my first job ever speaking to media, which became basically my entire career, when he installed me as communication director for the Mass Democratic Party when I had never spoken to a journalist in my entire life, which is very much the John Walsh playbook, which is to trust people, to have more faith in them than they may have in themselves. I think that's kind of was always John's motto. It was his ethos. Was to help us figure out our path, but believe in us before we could and allow us to make mistakes and figure it out. And that's what John did for me. And, despite beyond our, career connections, John really was one of my dear friends, and I miss him terribly. I think in so many ways, John brought this level of optimism in the darkest moments that few can summon. And this is, I feel like I feel like a lot of the periods of the last, decade have been difficult. I feel like we're in a tough period right now. And I've been exclaiming to people that we lost John Walsh at a time when we can least afford to lose people like John. And it makes it feel that much more heartbreaking that he's not here with us.
Sarah, Alex just identified a couple of distinguishing features of John Walsh: believing in people when they didn't necessarily believe in themselves, bringing a sense of optimism in dark moments. Are there other insights he had about politics or convictions he had about the way politics ought to work that you think of as distinctive or unusual?
John meant what he said. And, I miss him so much, as Alex expressed. And I was scrolling through his social media looking for, to kind of hold on to some of those John-isms and just things he would remind us in and anchor us in. And he really believed in the grassroots, not in a transactional way. He really believed that if you give people the opportunity to get behind a candidate or an issue-based campaign that's in the best interest of their family and their community, if you give folks that opportunity and you bring the campaign to them, you're going to get phenomenal outcomes for good. And I just hope that's something that we all hold on to in John's memory. I think he also was just so clear about the role of mentorship. I think one of the things that's remarkable about all the folks that have shared memories and testimony from John is they truly come from every walk of life. And specifically, the Congresswoman and I were talking about how many folks of color and how many women were mentored by John. Politics has a lot of barriers to entry for folks, and he just vehemently disagreed that should be the case. He went out of his way to build the pipeline, to invest in diverse candidates, to support women, to be advocates. Someone at the service said, John Walsh's mantra was hire brilliant women and get out of their way. And, he has just brought so many people into these spaces who I know have made my community and my family better off in politics in the truest sense, right? Folks who have advocated for paid family leave and working families and a Green New Deal. And it's phenomenal. I think the impact of John Walsh is not just time-bound. We're going to feel it for a whole generation to come in Massachusetts.
Just to drive home your point about his interest in diversifying the political establishment, bringing in new voices, I want to roll a little bit of what Andrea Campbell had to say at the memorial service for John Walsh, very much along the lines of what you just mentioned.
What makes John stand apart from the other so-called political consultants, John never sought me out for business. He never asked me to pay him a penny. Yes, he had clients, but he took pride in making sure that a diverse group of leaders, a varied demographic, also had support and counsel in what they would need to be successful. This Commonwealth, as a result, has more political diversity, and John had an intimate hand in the firsts that are here today.
Alex Goldstein, back when Deval Patrick was running for governor as someone a lot of people hadn't heard of, a lot of people didn't think could win, was that commitment that Sarah and that the Attorney General mentioned evident?
Oh, my God. Yes. I mean, so John, what's so amazing about John is John has a heart, had a heart for outsiders, right? The people that did not have a seat at the table, and pushing everybody was aside to get them that seat at the table. But what's incredible is that once they gained that seat, and John gained that seat in a big way, he became the chairman of the Massachusetts Democratic Party. And a lot of people would use that perch as being, becoming a part of the establishment as a kind of perpetuation of status quo. And John was the opposite. I came into the party with John, and John upended the party. He upended the conventional wisdom of how we do our politics. He upended the ideas of who belongs at the table, as Sarah said, not just in terms of candidates, but also in terms of staff. And I think, creating a space where, I've been telling folks these last week or so that John is probably the only person of serious power in the political structure who never sent anyone to voicemail. Over the course of his 15 years as leading the party and at these highest levels of politics, John didn't care who you were or where you came from. If you had a voice that he believed was worthy of being heard, and he believed everybody was worthy of being heard, he was going to find a way to uplift you and give you that opportunity. And that's like, I think that is transcendent in that it will continue for generations. I think there's so many people who are committed to living the way John lived and working the way John worked. And that will be a really big part of his legacy.
Well, my condolences to both of you. Thank you for taking time to reflect on him. And I didn't know him like you did, but it was always a pleasure to talk with him. He was so warm and so thoughtful, and I wish I had talked to him more. Alex Goldstein, Sarah Groh, thank you both.